Hello and welcome back to Marketing Mondays with Marilyn. This week we're talking about content marketing, what it is, why it's important, and how you can implement it in your marketing strategy for 2024. So first, let's talk about what content marketing actually is. It is a strategic approach to market your business that is focused on creating and putting out content that's valuable, consistent, and relevant that will help you attract and retain a defined audience who will ultimately become your customers. This is pretty much the opposite strategy of being focused on selling people products or services upon first interaction with the brand, which was what most marketing entailed for a very long time. Whenever I talk about content marketing with a customer, one of the first questions they have is this: does that stuff really work? The answer is yes, it does, and there is a lot of research and data that backs that up, which is why it's estimated that in 2023, about 91% of business-to-business marketers shifted to a much larger focus on content marketing. Additionally, in previous years, data has suggested that companies who use that as their primary marketing vehicle had a 30% higher growth rate than companies who didn't use content marketing at all. Those are pretty impressive numbers. So let's talk about how you can implement content marketing in your strategy now. And you should, because truth be told, effective marketing has become almost impossible without having great content. Having a platform to reach the world is far easier today than it was, say, 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. So in order to stand out in that super crowded, competitive marketplace, your content has to grab people's attention and has to do it on a consistent basis. In conducting research on what the top things that helps companies develop content like that connects with audiences, the results were not really that surprising. The number one way to determine what content was most effective was doing your homework. Doing research on who you want to attract and what they would like to see was overwhelmingly at the top of the list, garnering the biggest part of the success ratio. The other biggest metrics were publishing more content and increasing post frequency, improving the quality and value of what you're putting out. So those things are all somewhat related. So how do you create that type of content that your target audience wants to see? Besides research, I mean. One simple way is figuring out what is already working for others. Take a look at what your competitors are doing, how their content is structured, what frequency they're putting it out at, what pain points the content is addressing, and what people can learn from it. A very old tenet of effective sales comes into play here. When you teach people how to solve a problem, or you educate them, or you establish yourself as an expert that they can trust, they will like you. And people want to buy things from people that they like, from people that they trust, not to steer them wrong. So when you're doing your research on what kind of content you want to share with your audience, you want to make sure it communicates these things: approachability, expertise, desire to share knowledge, and common sense solutions. And you want to make sure that your content is better and more valuable than what's already out there, giving them a reason to interact with yours versus someone else's. You also want to make sure that you're authentic. Focus on what people actually need and what they can relate to. Real-life experiences are great for this, and that's why so many brands these days are implementing user-generated content as part of their marketing strategy. It's excellent for building community too, which people love, and that's how all of a sudden buying a cup or a pair of jeans is no longer about the item itself, but about the lifestyle and the sister or brotherhood of owning that product. Establishing that authenticity is effective when you're marketing to any demographic, but it has proven to be especially important to the millennial demographic, who will overwhelmingly choose a brand that relates to their own personal values over one that does not, even for what most people think are fairly inconsequential purchases. A great example of a brand that embraces authenticity, and in that it's made a huge difference in their marketing strategy, is Aerie, the women's intimate apparel brand. Several years ago, Aerie was one of the first brands selling these types of items to stop photoshopping models' photos and start showing more diverse, real women as models who had a variety of body types and they implemented this strategy across all their content, positioning themselves as a brand that sells undergarments and loungewear that's comfortable for all women, regardless of race, color, weight, size, height, etc. This was a winning strategy for them, and it gained them a very loyal following among young women, especially those aged 18 to 25, which is a demographic that is notorious for being difficult to figure out by many marketers. It's interesting to note that Aerie is actually owned by American Eagle, which has been around much longer than this spin-off, but Aerie has somehow consistently and reliably outperformed American Eagle in sales by a significant margin every single year for more than a decade. It's also resulted in Aerie opening many more standalone stores for that same period than American Eagle did. Another company that does content marketing really well is Coca-Cola. Yes, Coca-Cola, who a lot of people think as something that you don't really need to advertise. It's like toilet paper. Who is out here not already buying this? But yet, despite having a literal household name, they have been doing content marketing for years, arguably longer than it's even been a thing. Remember those polar bear commercials back in the 90s? Those were really effective and they were memorable. People still talk about them today. So, needless to say, authenticity works, and it should definitely be a part of your marketing strategy. But are there any disadvantages to content marketing? Sure. It takes more time and resources to get started than just putting a guy outside your store with a big sign that says, "Buy our stuff right now." With content marketing, the results aren't always immediate either. It can be hard to set benchmarks, and it can take some research and trial and error to figure out what really works for your company and what doesn't. But is all of it worth it? And does it work for small businesses too? Our opinion is absolutely yes. However, we will let the numbers speak for themselves because we all know that numbers don't lie. And remember in the beginning of this video when we said that 91% of marketers who use content marketing in a B2B environment have reported great success from using it? That number is 83% for B2C or business to consumer, and that includes small businesses. That's still a very impressive number, and it tells you something else when you read between the lines, that content marketing is an incredible equalizer for a small business. You may not have a huge marketing budget where you can afford a commercial during the Super Bowl or put a billboard across major highways, but you can certainly, with the help of someone who really knows their stuff, put together a great content bank, own the market on a certain look and feel or keyword, and you can get a lot of bang for a few $100 by building that and by being consistent with it. There's no doubt that content marketing works for any business, regardless of size, and for a small business, it's one of the best ways to get the most value for your spend. So with that in mind, the question is not, can your business afford content marketing? It's, can you afford not to do it? So how do you get started? We can help. We have put together a white paper called Creating Content Made Simple. It's available for a free download on our website right now. I'll put a link to it in the video's description. See you again next week with an all-new episode. Stay tuned.